Okay, today I'm going to show you how to make a heart. It could be as small as like one for a keychain, or even smaller than this if you have smaller yarn, or a little toy. So we're going to start with the bumps. So the bumps, it's going to be in two pieces and then we're going to connect it. So I'll show you. For this tutorial though, because I'm using a thicker yarn, I'm actually only doing 5 rounds here. Normally if you have a thinner yarn, I do about 6 rows. So let's get started here. Magic ring using a 3.5 millimeter hook. So you're going to chain 1. You're going to make 8 single crochets. And so for this purpose, I'm going to actually do the spiral method. If you don't know what that is, you can check out one of my older videos. I mean, a couple weeks ago. That'll show you. So we're going to put 2 single crochets in each. I'm using a stitch marker, so it'll tell me when my round ends so that I don't lose track. So here's the tip. Whatever amount of stitches you start in the first round is the amount that's going to increase in the second, third, and however many rows that you plan on increasing. So if I started off with 8, my second row is going to be 16 because I'm adding another 8, right? And then my third row would add another 8, which makes it 24. So I'm just removing the stitch and putting it back on the first stitch so that I know that's where it stops. So the next row will be 1 single crochet and then 2 in the next stitch. So that's that pattern. And if you're not a fan of counting like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all the way up to 24, then you can always just count per stitch in each loop. So I'm doing 1, 2, and that's what I say in my head usually when I'm doing this stuff, so that I don't lose track. And also with the spiral method, you're kind of eliminating the slip stitch at the end. If you're not a fan of that, this is a great method for you, because I notice with some of my students, they end up adding extra stitches that's kind of not necessary at the end, and then you end up adding more than you needed. So this is a good way to stop that from happening. So no increase in that 4th round. And you see it's starting to curve up, and then we'll invert it when it's easier. The last round. I'm in at the end now. I've got 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows, right? So I'm done here. So on the first one, I kept a little tail because you're going to actually combine it. It doesn't really matter where. I tend to just eyeball it. It doesn't have to be exact, but I usually go in like some slip stitches just so it's a little bit cleaner and it'll stay put. I'll usually go in about 4, going through both loops on both sides. Okay, that's fine, and you don't worry about the tail because we're going to tuck it in anyways. Okay, so now we're going to keep going in a loop. So for this row, I'm not going to increase or decrease anything because from here on out we're going to be decreasing only. So don't worry too much about being exact here because you just want to get into every loop, and then when the two bumps meet, you can add a loop there or you can skip it, because if you do skip it though, there's going to be a little bit of a hole, so you can actually go into it if you prefer. But I don't even know what I did that first one, but let's see. Yeah, see, because there's a little bit of a hole. I'm going to close that hole hopefully later. I'll show you how. Technically, let's do this instead. Since we don't want to go into that, we'll go into the actual stitch. There you go. Now it looks a little bit cleaner. So here's your decrease round. This number could change depending on how sharp you want the pointed part, this part, how you want it to be. But I usually start with 5. So I'll do 5 single crochets. And then I'll decrease the next 2. Okay, 5. I wouldn't be too concerned about like the numbers not adding up at the end, because it kind of just takes shape anyways. So we're going to alternate. This row has no decreases. this one, I'm gonna do 4. But I'm starting off with 2 because it's kind of staggering. You want to stagger where the decreases are so that it doesn't make this weird little wave. So let's see, 2, 3, 4, and then decrease. So that'll be your pattern. 4, decrease. Again, no decrease, so it's alternating. So you decrease one round, you don't decrease the next round, and you keep going. And the yarn that I'm using is actually a changing color yarn, or a color changing yarn. It has a bunch of different colors in there. So this is kind of like an ombre effect. Just kind of neat. So, you know, changing colors is not very fun because it's time consuming. You guys can always skip ahead if you don't want to sit here and just watch and do the same thing over and over. Okay, now we're going to do 3. 1, 2, 3, decrease. No decrease. You guys are paying attention, then my next decrease round is 2. But from here, I think I will put some stuffing in just to help keep its shape, and then because the smaller the hole at the end, the harder it is to do stuffing. here's another trick. Once you get to, like when the rounds are getting smaller and smaller, your hook, you can actually go down one size smaller too, to help it, so that you can eliminate some of the holes that might happen, especially with the big hook. So there's 2, and then decrease. Might end up pulling some of the stuffing out. It's okay, because you can always clean that up at the end, so I wouldn't worry too much about it. The only problem with the smaller hook is that it's a little more difficult to get through. That's why I rolled the yarn twice on my finger instead of once. Normally you don't want it too tight, right? But for this purpose, you kind of do want it tight. It takes a little bit of technique, finesse, to get this right. My no decrease round. Be a less decrease round, I think. So I'm doing 1 and decrease in the next 2. 1, decrease. So I would consider this next one my last row. So from here, you can add more stuffing. Adding a few more stitches than the actual row, just because I feel like it needs it. And then I would cut off a tail. There you go. You can add more stuffing if you want from here, but I think it should be good enough. Yarn needle. Here you could hide the thread inside. And there you go, a little heart. Hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, let's leave it in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.